If you are writing loops, if you are writing programs, ignorance is bliss. I do not want to have to read through the code line by line to figure out what it does. There are a few signals I can send you so that it will be easier for you to understand what the code is supposed to do. Here's the first. British keyboard. I can start this all over again. Counter equals 8. Dashes is the empty string. I can add a comment. In Python, anything from the hash or pound. Those for hash, those for pound, those who don't care, those who have another name for this. Okay, I'm going to call it a hash. Anything from the hash and after is ignored by Python. You can write any text you want. Okay, so sets dashes to counter over 2 characters. And then, while counter greater than 0, dashes is dashes plus a hyphen, which I better put in quotes. Counter equals counter minus 2. Okay. If it isn't obvious what the code is doing, either rewrite the code to make it obvious or add a comment so that people will understand the intent. If it takes me 20 lines of calculation to figure out the standard deviation for that population, I should say, comment, calculate standard deviation for population, and then have the 20 lines of code. Okay? I should then make sure that my comment is accurate, because if I change my code and it does something else, if this is modified, for example, so that it does 1/3 as many dashes or twice as many dashes, and I don't update the comment, that is worse than having no comment at all. Sending you a misleading signal will actually cost you more time than sending you no signal at all. And again, that's pretty easy to demonstrate in the controlled laboratory experiments, not just in programming. Okay? So, comments are good. Meaningful variable names are good. Dashes is a pretty good variable name. You I'm going to be adding hyphens to it to make a line of dashes. Okay? Counter is a pretty good variable name. C and D, not so good. All right? What does the variable x hold? Well, if we're in a computational geometry program, you can guess that it's the x-coordinate of something. But if you've got the x-coordinates of several things, you don't know whose x-coordinate this is. And maybe it isn't an x-coordinate. Maybe it's an x-range. Maybe it's how big the x-axis is. Choose a more meaningful variable name so that programs can be read by other people. One of the key tests is if you can read it aloud and it doesn't suck, it's probably well-written code. I'm going to pick in the middle, please, with the Macintosh. Please, read this aloud, ignoring the comment. Just start there and just read this code.
Counter equals 8, dashes equals empty string. Ignoring the comment, you said? While the counter is greater than 0, do the following. Dashes equals dashes plus hyphen. Counter equals counter minus 2.
Okay. Now, okay, you can see where I'm going with this. I can, again, demonstrate that if I choose names that are equal in length, equal in number of syllables, it's been controlled for in a bunch of ways, but meaningless, you will actually find it harder to read the code aloud correctly and much harder to understand if somebody's reading it to you over the phone or if you're reading it on paper. Right? This doesn't carry any information with it to help you understand what the code is doing. Right? This does. This is better code. The question then is, how long should my variable names be? If you have a variable name called current index into the signal we just read from file a moment ago, plus 1. Okay, that's a bad variable name. Why? Never mind the time it takes you to type. Okay? Oh, information overload. Right? What's the right name for this variable? Well, I. Right? If all you're using the variable for is it's an index into something else, I equals 0, I equals 1, we're at line 3, line 4, line 5, The smaller the scope we're using the variable, sort of the smaller the part of the program where the variable is in use, the shorter its name can be. The less important the concept, the shorter the name can be. Okay? Something that has a lot of scope, it's used in many different parts of the program, give it a more meaningful variable name. Something where it's not immediately obvious what the concept is, right? Give it a more meaningful variable name. Again, you're writing your programs to be read by people. The machine doesn't care whether that's called splodge or counter. It doesn't. The human being really does.